Hello, hey, what's up, Eridanus?
How's it going?
Hey, I'm good. Just checking my mic.
Okay, no worries. I'm here, but I'll be right back.
What's up, Saigon?
What's going on? Test 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you. Well, always.
All right, let me see. My headphones aren't working, so give me a hot sec. Test 1, 2. Bro. How we doing?
Perfect.
Nice. How's your day going, Cal?
Great, man. I feel like there's a lot of news to talk about this week.
There is.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming out recently.
There's a lot going on out there. And it's all exciting. I mean, in THORChain and crypto and everything, yeah.
Yeah, Kraken listing today, just out of nowhere. And then also the Akash founder saying that Thor nodes will be running on Akash soon. That's going to be great.
Nice. Yeah, we have a whole list here. Thor names, text aggregation. I'm back, Mr. Chad.
Hey, Chad. Hey, Saigon, do you want to start talking about the conference?
Yeah, happy to. I mean, we can give people a few more minutes to trickle in. I think it's pretty early right now. We can shoot the shit for a little bit. Is Chad in here?
I think Chad Thoreau can't make it this day. I think he's got some travel plans, whatever. But just going to be me and you and Domenico.
Tres Amigos. Let's do it.
No, Eridanus is up here too. I asked him to come back me up here.
Oh yeah, and Eridanus too. There you are.
Howdy, Eridanus.
What's up, guys?
Four amigos. I love it.
Quattros.
There we go. Awesome. Yeah. Happy to intro the expo. It's something we're excited about. We've been working on. So we love conferences. I actually connected with like members from the original THORChain team at a conference in 2018. That's how I got looped into the ecosystem in the first place. And it changed the trajectory of my life. So I have a soft spot in my heart for conferences. They're fun, a great way to connect with the community in real life, a community that exists online so much. And so it can make relationships and connections and concepts all the more real. And I live in Austin, Texas, and this year one of the larger crypto conferences in the US every year is Consensus. It's hosted by CoinDesk. It's normally hosted in New York City every year, but this year for the first time they moved it to Austin, Texas. So that was a big announcement when they dropped that a couple months ago. It's next month in June, almost exactly a month from now. June 8th through 12th is the Consensus conference. And with that coming to our backyard, we thought we got to do something. Got to show up, come correct, and help turn Austin on, Thorpill Austin and the greater kind of Consensus community. So together with some of our ecosystem partners, including you guys here on stage, we've been conspiring and are happy to kind of finally share with the community here that we're going to do the first cross-chain expo. And so this is going to be a mini conference dedicated towards like all the tools, protocols, applications that are building towards the multi-chain future. It's going to be a one day kind of mini conference experience in downtown Austin, just a few blocks from the convention center. It's going to be Wednesday, June 8th. And it's going to feature, we're going to have lunch from like 12 to 1, and then we'll have some programming talks and panels from a bunch of multi-chain like developers and leaders of multi-chain projects, including THORChain, Broker, Thor Wallet, Thor Starter, Maya Protocol, and a handful of others that we're in conversation with right now. Nine Realms as well. And yeah, we'll have programming from 1 to 5:30, and then we'll have a happy hour from 5:30 to 8 o'clock and connect with each other. Just really do our part to kind of create the first in-person experience for the THORChain community and the broader like multi-chain, cross-chain community. And that's pretty much it. Like we just went live with the website and the socials. If you go to crosschain, the website's crosschain.so, S-O, and the socials like Twitter, it's CrossChain Expo. Thank you for pinning that tweet there, Cal. So it's at CrossChain Expo on Twitter. It's going to be a free event, and it'll be at Native Hostel in downtown Austin, Wednesday, June 8th. Yeah.
The venue is super cool. I saw the pictures of it. That's going to be a great venue for this place. Can't wait to throw some panels and stuff here. We can get chat up on stage. We can get some, and we can room pill some people who maybe never even heard of it before.
Absolutely, yeah. The venue, we were really surprised that this venue was available. It was like the first place that we thought of in Austin. It's the most obvious place. It's like this really cool kind of exposed brick, kind of rustic venue space. It actually has, it's like it has a few different rooms, and what we're actually doing is like Wednesday is going to be, the day of programming in the biggest kind of event space called the Ballroom. That's where this mini conference is going to be held. But then for the rest of the week, like the rest of the day on Wednesday, and then all day Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, we're turning the what they call the parlor room and the bar room into just like THORChain branded, THORChain themed, a THORChain themed lounge. And so we go there, get refreshments, Wi-Fi, comfortable couches, sofas, tables. So you can just, if you're at the conference and you want to get out, take a load off, connect with other people. We'll have this like kind of like for the rest of the week, this space where people can come take a load off. We have like a upstairs private VIP area for all of our sponsors and ecosystem partners. So that'll be a little like intimate and like a little VIP section. But really it's going to be our little corner of Austin for the week of consensus. And that'll be great because we know of at least, I mean, it looks like it's going to be somewhere in the nature of like somewhere like 8 to maybe even up to 10 of the ecosystem projects that we're talking to that are all going to be in town. It'll be the first time a lot of us are meeting in person, which is super cool. And then connect with the community members. So anybody that's listening is more than welcome to obviously come join us. It's free again. Crosschain.so, the lounge is crosschain.so/lounge. You can check it out there. Again, conspiring with folks up here on stage, including Cal. Cal, you want to be the MC or moderate some panels? I think we talked about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely down for that. That'll be a good time.
Awesome. Oh, we thought about the idea of doing like a THORChain weekly live. That'd be fun.
I want to have a Gavin and Chad panel. I think that's going to be the best panel that we could put together.
Yeah, I love that idea. Also like the idea of like an investor panel, getting some of the funds and some of the funds or investors that have invested in THORChain to give their kind of perspective on it, which would be cool too. Chad, what are you excited about? What do you have in mind?
I mean, I'm excited about this thing just in general, just because I wasn't sure I'd ever see the day where you actually have like a THORChain, like a THORChain conference like that. Just to me, it's just crazy talk. Like it's amazing. I just never thought I'd see it, and then all of a sudden it's happening. I'm just like, wow, oh my gosh, this is the real deal. I'm excited just to go to the conference and meet more people in the community and answer more questions and just try to foster the community as a whole and get people more room filled, as you put it earlier.
Absolutely.
By the way, on the topic of room pilling, I actually met with the CMO of Radix, Radix DLT, I think the official name is. And I was just talking to their CMO, like he happened to be in New York City, and he's like, "Hey, I'm out in New York." I met him at a preview. He's like, "I'm out in New York City. Like, let's just grab some coffee." And we went out. And he's like, "So tell me more about this whole Thorify stuff and THORChain, blah blah blah." I talked to him for about an hour, and just dropped massive alphas on his head, and he just became so over the moon about it. It was just insane. Like he was just crazy about it. And so he just starts like calling the CEO of Radix and like, "We got to get it integrated now today. Like let's put engineer on it today." Like he got like super bullish on it, like in a very short period of time, just by describing what it is and what this chain does and how to accomplish the task and all that kind of stuff. So that guy was room filled to the max there.
Okay. What is Radix?
So Radix is like kind of like an Ethereum competitor. It's like a more scalable smart contracting like chain where they're doing basically sharding, which is something similar to what Ethereum's doing, but the difference is that their shards can like communicate. So like you have run things in multiple shards and things can communicate with each other, and it becomes quite useful. So they're trying to be like a one-stop shop, and it's been years in development, like 5 or 6 years it's been being worked on, and they're just recently launched their first version called Olympia. And then next year they're going to launch what they call Babylon. But it's an interesting project for sure. It's got a very low market cap. Not a lot of people know about it at this point in time, but I think in the future it could change quite significantly. They have the same problem as a lot of layer ones of like it's hard to get listed on exchanges just because for a centralized exchange to list a layer one, it's like this requires a lot more infrastructure, a lot more security audits, and like understanding all the different like dependencies of that particular chain, all the code paths that exist, all the code paths of the code paths, what's in the dependencies of those code. It's very expensive. And so it's hard to get liquidity. It's hard to get listed. And so he got very excited about us because, we don't really require it in the same sense that a centralized exchange does. And so it's a lot easier to get a lot of liquidity into your network with relatively a lot less money and a lot less time.
Looks like from their Twitter page, their first post is, does the future of DeFi still belong to Ethereum, the Radix blog? So it sounds like they're, similarly oriented where it's, chain agnostic to, where DeFi can be. I mean, all of us know that DeFi lives everywhere and lives cross-chain now, but, it's interesting to see these guys are aligned. I guess maybe because they're an Ethereum competitor. So obviously the future of DeFi does not belong on Ethereum if you're an Ethereum competitor. All right, let's get into some of the stuff for this week. So first off, that Kraken announcement from yesterday. So if you guys haven't seen that, Kraken Exchange just announced that they would be supporting native Rune deposits starting yesterday, and I believe trading starts today. So that's the first major centralized exchange that supports native Rune deposits, withdrawals, trading, and that might mark the end of the arbitrage gap between between the centralized exchanges and this native Rune as it is, because normally there's a small price discrepancy where BEP2 Rune is quite a bit higher than native Rune, so maybe we'll see some changes there. But this is the first native listing of Rune and with a major exchange, so that's just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, I always suspected that whenever we launched like a major exchange listed native Rune, that the trade volume on the network would probably naturally increase. I assume significantly, just because of the arbitrage opportunities has just been opened up because of a way to get to Bitcoin to Rune outside of the network, and so that just kind of closes some opportunities to be in the world in a sense. We'll see if that actually is true. That is an assumption I kind of made, but I could be incorrect with that assumption. Who knows? But that's the thing, like that whole Kraken thing, like we as a core team, we reached out to them about a year ago, right when we basically right around the time we launched multi-chain to begin with, and we just basically filled out a form saying, hey, a request to be listed. And we didn't hear anything back from them at all for over a year. And so this thing just dropped out of nowhere from my perspective, which is great. That just means, to me, that just is a signal that growth can happen outside of the core team and Nine Realms, trying to handhold everything, right, to get it moving. At some point, integrations, listings, all that kind of stuff is just going to happen without, our knowledge and our involvement, which is a really good thing. It allows the THORChain community to grow, disconnected from any kind of core team of any kind, which is really positive for the network for sure.
Yeah, so hopefully the first of many centralized exchange listings, but this is a huge one, and finally an easy way as an American to buy Rune without actually having to know what you're doing. Previously, it's much more difficult to acquire Rune. Just the technical knowledge required to to buy and trade Rune. That leaves a lot of people stuck buying BEP2 Rune on Binance and having no idea what to do with it. And now it's going to be great that it can just move right from Kraken right to liquidity pools and arbitrage.
Right,
it's going to be great.
Great. Yeah, it's great that it's open for Americans. This is the first time Rune was available to Americans directly, with the exception of Kraken doesn't support New York State or Washington State. So if you happen to live in one of those two states, you're kind of shit out of luck for now, at least.
As do we know if, as Kraken and other exchanges list native Rune, are they going to deprecate the other alternative Rune assets that they were listing?
That's been our position. When we have our conversations with various centralized exchanges, etc. When we've had many exchanges come to us hey, we're going to list Rune. We're great, and they're which one is it? And they're ERC20. We're no, don't do that. Just don't touch it. Just leave it alone. Don't do that. But we specifically designed ERC20 Rune to not be listed by exchanges by design. So. So we're trying to push. They all go for the ERC20 quickly because it's such a low-hanging fruit for them. It's very easy for them to add another ERC20. But we're trying to push them off of that and then get towards the native stuff, which I think we've been talking with quite a few lately, and I think we're going to see some more listings happening in the very near future. So stay tuned. Stay tuned over the next couple of weeks, because I think you might see one or two or three possibly maybe be listed. So we have more stuff coming downstream, which is just more obviously super bullish for the network.
Yeah, I don't think that Kraken had Rune listed at all before. I don't think you could even buy a wrapped version, the ERC20 or the BEP2 version. I think it was just kind of off limits, because I've definitely looked to buy as an American, just looking to to buy Rune easily, and there's no such options until today. I guess now is the first day that you could buy native Rune on Kraken. So.
And by the way, like, listing is just like the first step, right? Like these exchanges can hook into LPing, and once like THORFi comes out, they can hook into like lending. They can hook into a single asset exposure, like savings interest or interest accounts. All sorts of opportunities exist for these like centralized exchanges to give their user base more power, flexibility, and more options without actually needing to build anything themselves or take on any additional risk themselves. Right, from spending months building, engineering, hiring people, maintaining, blah blah blah. They can just like hook into us as a project and offer that to their user base to give their user base more advantage. And so I think that's naturally going to happen in the future. I think listing is just be kind of the first and obvious step, but as we kind of progress during down to like the THORFi road and kind of show its value and how useful it is and how people demand it, I think that'll change. We'll see some more central exchanges like dipping into the THORChain pool in a much more significant way than they are now.
Do you know what?
There was even there was even like an early Coinbase employee who had a tweet thread I don't know, a year ago maybe, and it was like, Coinbase in 5 years, or centralized exchanges in 5 years, they're not even going to have like their own centralized proprietary order books. Like they'll like just be front ends to a global liquidity pool. And so if you zoom out like far enough, it's there's a future in which not only are they of course listing Rune, but even they're they themselves are backing up to THORChain's like liquidity pools.
Yeah, it's kind of like the deeper the liquidity pools get on our network here, the more natural trade volume we'll have, because the fees will become cheaper and cheaper. The liquidity will be higher and higher. And, in 5 years, like THORChain could be the place where people do, a vast majority of their trading, whether they're aware they're using THORChain or not. It could be just something they're just, I'm using this other thing that's actually being powered by THORChain. And there's this like kind of interesting possibility, a few years down the road of like, with a sufficient enough liquidity in the pools, that THORChain can become like the number one place where people buy and trade Bitcoin, or buy and trade Ethereum, or buy and trade for assets in the entire ecosystem. That sounds crazy, and it sounds like I'm kind of spouting some bullshit here, but logically speaking, mathematically speaking, it makes complete sense as long as THORChain's pools can get deep enough to kind of foster such a thing. But if they become sufficiently deep, then that is the inevitable result of that.
So to go off what you were saying earlier, do you know any other DeFi products that are offered by the centralized exchanges? What other services are tapped into? I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been talking a little bit with Celsius, for example, and they have this new thing they're working on called Celsius X, which is basically Celsius like taking capital from various people and then reinvesting that capital into a multitude of DeFi protocols in the space. And because I think the problem they have as centralized entities is that they keep on growing. Like Celsius has like, somewhere between 10 and $15 billion of, capital probably sitting around somewhere. Same thing with like, BlockFi or the other kind of, entities. They all have, huge quantities of capital, but they don't, the more capital that you have, the more difficult it gets to find yield for it, right? Especially in a sufficient amount of yield for it, right? Same thing like Warren Buffett has the same problem. Like Warren Buffett is so wealthy, and at Berkshire Hathaway is so wealthy that like, you can't just like, buy into any old stock on the market. It just wouldn't be worth his time in most of the cases. And so the wealthier that he gets, the more difficult the game gets for him to finding a method, like a reasonable methodology of actually, investing all these hundreds of billions of dollars of like, USD. And so it's the same thing with BlockFi and LM. Like BlockFi historically has used GBDC as their income source for the yield on Bitcoin. And it's, that's GBDC is not that great. It's not that consistent. It's, no, I don't think anybody, including BlockFi, would say that that's like their long-term support system for obvious reasons. And that's partially why the yield for Bitcoin on BlockFi is just like, it's super low. Like you go to the website, they say, it's like 5%, but like reality, it's not. It's like 5% for the first like, tenth of a Bitcoin or something like this. And then like after that, it's like a quarter of a percent or something kind of crazy low. And so like they have to do that because they don't have a mechanism to generate yield, right? Whereas THORChain could be a bad mechanism for them, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how that happens. I think they're going to naturally adopt DeFi and not just THORChain, but other projects and communities as well as a methodology for generating yield for their user base. And they're going to be pressure on them to just adopt more and more DeFi, to do so. And eventually you won't even need them anymore. You just provide your own capital to the THORChain or whatever else you want to do. And then you get a better yield than if you give it to them,
Yeah, I could see a world where BlockFi just uses THORFi to do its lending. I think what the issue with these like big institutional players is like they don't want to risk facing a DeFi protocol right now, so they're all like kind of scared about doing that, and it's kind of a heavy lift. So it'll be interesting to see. Like I think it's inevitable because it just makes so much sense. So it'll be interesting to see like the steps that they take to get there, and maybe it's like kind of a service in between that they face and that interfaces with THORChain for them or something. But it'll be cool to see. I think over the next few years we'll see that start to happen.
Yeah, and they have to operate very differently than you or I have to operate as retail investors. Like they're dealing with huge quantities of billions of dollars of other people's money, and they don't know, regulatory speaking, like what is what. Like they don't really have a good sense of it. I mean, BlockFi just went through this whole like cease and desist letter recently, and that caused this whole thing, blah blah blah. Like, and even when they're investing into some particular DeFi platform, like let's just call it Terra, for example, Anchor Protocol, for example. Well, what risks do they take on? Because Terra is being sued by the SEC for buying and trading securities like Apple stock, for example, via the Mirror protocol. And so, what legal risk does BlockFi take on by interacting with the Anchor protocol? Like, is there and all of a sudden the Anchor protocol uses UST as a stable coin, which is not backed by the US dollar or one-to-one. Therefore, is it considered to be blah blah blah? Like all that stuff creates so much like complexity and just like confusion. There's just no guidelines at all until you just get this massive letter from the SEC telling you cease and desist, or your Coinbase a few months ago where Coinbase was going to launch an interest program and like they asked permission for the SEC and the SEC is like, nope, don't do it. And like, all right, I guess we won't do it anymore. Like it's just this weird kind of situation. Like I don't envy BlockFi at all about the difficulties they have to go through. I much prefer the DeFi space where I don't have to think about that kind of shit. I'm just going to build what should exist in the world and I don't really give two shits what exactly a particular government thinks about it, and this is what should exist in the world. I'm just going to make that happen just through engineering work and effort.
That is the way.
This is the way.
And Celsius just got slapped with that $100 million fine a couple months ago. It's just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I don't envy them at all. I mean, they have a tough job. But I almost see them like, it's kind of like when the car was first invented and some guy was like selling like a mod for your car where you could like hook your horses to the car. Like, if it breaks down, you can still use your horses to like move your car around as like a chariot or whatever the term is for that thing, whatever. Like it makes complete sense in the beginning days of cars. Like they have like, you can hook your horse to the car too and pull it if you want to. But then like it just makes no sense at all. So I feel like sometimes it's something like Celsius and other ones are like sense in the interim, but like long term, I just don't know how they're going to be able to survive. They just have too much regulation, too much expectations, too much. Like I don't know how they're going to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, and it's like the rules get like retroactively created. It's like BlockFi has been like giving their customers this yield product for I don't know at least a year, and then now the SEC is like, oh well, you shouldn't have done that. Like you messed up. But it's like the rules weren't firmly established. So it's like they're just going out there trying things and then usually just getting rugged by the SEC, and it's just a mess.
Oh yeah, complete utter mess. And there's still no like. At some point, the U.S. has to kind of give some guidelines here, and in order to do so, the SEC can't actually do it themselves because they have to operate within the context of the law, and law doesn't really operate within the context of crypto or the digital realm or anything within the past 100 fucking years. So it's like Gensler can't really do much. He doesn't have as much power as we think that he does because he has to operate within the confines of what Congress has written as law, and in order to do something, empower him to take more, to give more like clarity, they have to really define some words like the term security and the term like what is like digital asset and what is actually an exchange. Like technically speaking, like from right now, according to the SEC, THORChain is not an exchange because it doesn't have order books. Order books is actually the definition what it actually defines as an exchange. So like technically speaking, THORChain is actually not an exchange according to the SEC because we don't have order books. Right. So like they have to like rethink and redesign and redefine almost everything about finance in order to really get some clarity going. And I really don't have any kind of faith in Congress to like really wrap their heads and brains around the idea of like DeFi, especially when it's moving at the ridiculously fast speeds that it moves at. It's like they don't even understand Facebook yet, and that's a fucking grandpa in the context of like technology. Like they don't even understand how Facebook makes money. Like it was a little like legitimate question that was asked to Marky Mark over there about how do you make money? We run ads, Senator.
Yeah, that was oh man, that was a cringe video.
That was a
tough.
cringe shot. And do you think they're really gonna understand crypto?
Yeah, they're using that. Also, the fact that like the jurisdiction is like so, it's not black and white because like THORChain isn't a U.S. company. It's not a European company. It's not a company. It's like it's run by like these anonymous nodes around the world. So it's like they can't even really argue that like THORChain needs to abide by like rules of the U.S. or like laws of the U.S. because it's just not a U.S. company. So like that gets really crazy. Like I don't know how they're gonna like reconcile
but not only
that.
that, it's like it's not part of the U.S. in any sense.
Right.
Like if THORChain was attacked tomorrow, would the U.S. militarily defend it? No, that wouldn't.
No. Definitely not.
If you're not going to it's not built. We don't utilize the roads and highways of the U.S. to know to run THORChain, right? I mean, we don't get protection from the military, and we don't there's no social nets or safety nets underneath it all. Like there's nothing. Like you're not involved at all. So like I don't understand why you would have the right to regulate something that you don't have any participation in whatsoever. Like you can regulate the dollar all you want. The inputs and outputs of entering and leaving the dollar, tax and regulate that all you want. That's your domain. That's perfectly fine. But like within the context of like any cryptocurrency for the most part, like you're not really a part of it. You don't really have a right to regulate it because it's not part of your system whatsoever, nor are you involved with it in any sense of form, and nor do you have any really reasonable right to tax it either. Like, why are you taxing Bitcoin? It's not a U.S. company like Apple is or like Tesla is. It's not part of your New York Stock Exchange. It's not part of like any of that system whatsoever. So like, why the hell are you regulating it or taxing it? I would say.
Yeah. That being said, I'm sure they will try to find a way. Once THORChain.
Well, yeah, they want the control. They want to tax it because it's a lot of money to be taxed, and they want to be able to control it because they don't want Bitcoin to become the reserve currency and beat out the dollar, which to me is inevitability.
Right. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to this Chad Barraford testimony in 2028. It's going to be a good one.
I will just try not to insult the hell out of them, just because they'll ask me some ridiculously dumb question and I'll just try to withhold my face from looking at them like they're in complete and utter moron. I'd probably be held in contempt, to be honest with you. I don't think I'd be able to withstand a barrage from congressmen and senators without yelling at them where have you been for the last 10 years? God damn.
Yeah, they're already pretty far behind, and they're not getting any closer anytime soon. So we'll just keep plowing ahead in the meantime, and we'll just leave them further in the dust. So THORChain related, THORName is launching on Monday. So that feature is going fully live on Monday, and the pre-registered name should be so if you pre-registered a name in June, that should just be up and running on Monday, correct?
Yeah, so it can come out with version 88, which I think is going to be released on Monday. That's the current thinking of plan. So as long as all that's true and the network adopts it, version 88 and all that kind of stuff, then I think THORNames will be going live that same day. So whenever 88 comes out and it's adopted by the network, that's when THORNames is going to go live in the community, which is great for specifically for affiliate fees, so that people can make more trades, help the integrations integrate with us better.
Sweet. Going along with THORNames, I'm curious. I know. It's been a long time coming, THORNames. So I think the pre-sale was last June or something like that, almost 10 or 11 months ago. Is there going to be is there a marketplace with it? Is there a website where you could buy a THORName on Monday once it goes live for people that have joined since then?
Yeah, I think THORSwap.THORNames.com or something like this, or you can go online and acquire. It's not marketplace yet in the sense of being able to I have this THORName and I want to offer it up for 100 Rune or whatever. That was a kind of a thought that we might have for like THORChain V2, but we just wanted to get the basic functionality and kind of the fundamentals correct. And then we could worry about like secondary markets or like this kind of stuff. But we'll see what the demand is. I'm not sure what the demand for that will actually be. I mean, maybe it'll be high, maybe it'll be low. Like I really don't have a good sense of it, but we'll just let the free market kind of inform us what's needed by the community.
Fair enough. So anything else coming to 88, version 88, which is coming on Monday?
There's a lot of things in 88. We're actually doing a release walkthrough Monday morning, which unfortunately is not great for Asia or Australia, I don't think. But yeah, we're gonna try to start doing this with releases in general, and especially releases that have some new functionality that node operators will want to consider. So I can like pull up a list here and see what. One thing that's going in is the ability for a node operator to change the operator fee for pooled validators. So right now we just kind of had a default 2,000 basis points, which is like 20%. And so when you have a pooled validator, the operator would get a 20% fee on any rewards from the bond provider's bond. And what's going out now is that the operator will be able to change that to a custom fee. If a bond provider has already bonded, they can only lower it. They can't increase it. If they want to increase it, the bond providers will have to unbond, and then the node provider can change that to a higher fee if they want. So that's one kind of cool feature that's going out. And let's see what else.
The other thing is that an upgrade to the ETH router, which is going to be happening as part of that as well. And what that is going to be kind of unlocking is the DEX aggregation for Ethereum on the Ethereum side of things. So with that and the DEX aggregation code itself being launched in version 89, I think we'll have support for, at least this is true for StageNet. We'll have to wait until it's ready on mainnet. We'll do some testing first for a while on StageNet, but on StageNet, you'll be able to swap in or swap out at aggregating one or multiple DEXs together to kind of, in a single transaction, move from one place to another place, no matter where that place is.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
How is
that's
sorry? How is the adoption for the pooled bond providers going? Because after like a week or two of that, I remember seeing that a lot of nodes have kind of consolidated and bolstered up their bonds using the pool validator features. I'm wondering, have you guys seen the progress on how that's has that been growing, or is that still a widely used feature?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually more utilized than I would have guessed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, me too.
It was like, last time I looked, and I haven't looked in a few weeks, so maybe it's different today, but last time I looked, it was like 18 of the nodes were using this bond provider feature, where like multiple people were bonded to a single node. That's a pretty high number. I actually wasn't expecting it to be that high, to be honest with you. That was more adoption of that feature than I would have guessed. I would have thought maybe 5 or like 10 would have been considered high in my mind. But no, like it's actually double that. It's closer to 20 at this point. So that's pretty cool. That's good to see that those people have an ability to earn more, to send more rune into the bond side and allow more people to participate in the community rather than just like the ultra whale with, whales to be able to run nodes. And then you can run it with even you and a handful of your friends can hop on together, which is pretty neat. Just a lot more people participate, which is great.
Yeah. There's actually 2 things that are like more process oriented that are going on. So there was this thing that was proposed. It's called like architecture design record, and this is what I think a lot of like big tech companies do. But if there's going to be a large architecture change proposed to THORChain, it's like you basically open a doc and you kind of go through the spec and you walk through the spec. You talk about what the purpose is, what the problem is that you're trying to solve, and then you can get community feedback on that, and then you get kind of consolidation, you get agreement on like what the actual implementation is going to be before you even start working on it. So that just helps like features kind of get designed and built the right way as everyone understands it, and then kind of get input from like node operators as well as the community before things are developed, which should be a nice like process change. And then the other process change is kind of trying to formalize the process of adding new chains. And things have been like pretty ad hoc with Terra and Atom now, but we're trying to kind of formalize this, and these are going to be like living and breathing documents so that like, as like planned obsolescence happens and the core team kind of moves on, these processes are put in place and agreed upon by the community so that like, once this is more of a community oriented and driven project, like those processes are in place for them to follow. And so this new chain process kind of like goes over like proposing a new chain, and then, developing the new chain, what are the technical requirements for that, finding an auditor and including the audit in the chain pull request, and then, moving to StageNet in the StageNet baking process, and then the rollout process for mainnet. And this also includes like a node operator vote. So, falling back to that minimal governance of node operators being the ones that kind of formally decide what is run on the network, and getting input and buy-in for each new chain that's added from the node operators before any massive amount of work is put into it. And so that's what we're going to kind of try to formalize with the next chains that we're adding.
So going off that, the chains being worked on right now are basically Atom, AVAX, Dash, probably with Atom seeing the first to hit StageNet, correct?
Yeah, most likely. It's looking like I need to actually bump the node operator vote. I think we're at like 42% or something. But yeah, that's in pull request now. I mean, it's pretty much a copy of the Terra client, so it should be a minimal review process, and then that's probably going to be in StageNet first. I think I'm going to kick off the vote for Dash, so we'll see how the node operators respond to that one. That's been in pull request for like 7 months, so we definitely want to get that reviewed and get it into StageNet if we can, and then probably AVAX next after that.
Great. Those are going to be huge integrations. Just seeing the success of the Terra launch and how much that's added to THORChain as a whole. That's been pretty incredible, and especially AVAX. I mean, all these AVAX, Atom, and Dash are going to be just amazing to add to THORChain. Just the interoperability there is going to be really good for all especially the aggregators, which we haven't even talked about today yet, which is coming soon. Man, it just opens up so many more possibilities, especially the low gas chains like AVAX, and then oh man, there's just so much good stuff coming.
Yeah, no, it's great. And we are really trying. I mean, Terra was a very successful launch in a lot of ways, and we're trying to like learn from that and apply that to every chain integration we do. And so like the Terra community was just so pumped about this, and having the joint Twitter Spaces, for example, was amazing. So we're like, I think like we're really trying to focus on repeating that and making each of these chain integrations like very impactful. And so, we're kind of, and the process doc has been kind of like created and merged, and we're going to keep on like iterating and improving as we go, each one.
Yeah, every time we add one of these chains, hopefully we're just rune pilling an entire, multi-billion-dollar community, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As you saw with Terra, like just every metric went up, right? Trade volume, LPs, the TVL, rune price, like everything, shot up as adding. And so, as you said, like we're going to try to recreate that as much as we can with Gaia and Dash and Avalanche and such.
Awesome. So I guess next we can talk about what's coming in the release after the one that'll be put out on Monday, which will be version 89, and that will add DEX aggregators and derived assets, which are two of the most awaited features besides chain integrations, because we all know that DEX aggregation will just link THORChain to more liquidity sources like Uniswap, Sushi, and there's just kind of everything else to bring the long tail to the short tail. And then derived assets is just a whole other beast, which is going to be one of the pillars of THORFi. So those should be coming to StageNet in a couple weeks, correct? Like 2 weeks?
Yeah, probably about that. If everything goes smoothly and such, sometimes we push features back another version, depending on cases and scenarios. But that can happen. But like probably it'll be land in the next couple weeks or so. Once we have it on StageNet, we're going to leave them off on the mainnet for a while. We'll let them bake on StageNet for some period, get some testing going, making sure they all look good, feel good, that kind of stuff. And then whenever we're ready to enable them on mainnet, then we can go through a Nova Mirror process too. All right, let's the core team is behind the idea of we've tested it, we verified it, the community tested it, verified it. Let's flip the bitch on and run some DEX aggregation and derived assets on mainnet, which would be huge, like gargantuan.
Yeah, we've talked about DEX aggregation a lot. So if you're curious about that, you should definitely go on Runebase and look at the AMA with Rango exchange and some of the past spaces that we've done. We talk about DEX aggregation a lot, but today let's talk a little bit about derived assets, because that's probably one of the most killer features of THORFi. that's coming. Just the dynamics of the derived assets, which would be like Thor BTC, Thor BTC being probably the biggest, of the derived assets. But so, Chad, would you be able to quickly explain what derived assets are and what that means for THORChain?
Yeah. So a derived asset is a synthetic asset. So we have synthetic assets on the network today already, which is we call them synths. And the derived asset is conceptually similar to that. They're both synthetic assets. They're both collateralized by an asset that's not themselves, like not collateralized by Bitcoin itself, or not collateralized by the thing that it's representing. And so they're both considered to be synthetic assets, but the way that they are backed is structurally very different. One uses the pool, which is what the synthetics use today. And a derived asset is backed by the Rune token itself, effectively. The Rune holder itself is the backer of that thing. So derived assets is very similar conceptually to how Luna UST works in some ways. From a basics perspective, but it's very different once you get into the nitty gritty. But basically, you're burning one asset, Luna in one case, or Rune in this case, and then you're minting another asset, which is UST in Terra's case, or Thor USD / Thor BTC / Thor F / Thor Doge, Thor Luna on our chain. So what this is basically going to do, launch derived assets. Thor BTC or F will probably not be used very much because there won't be a demand for it. And at least not on day one by design. But Thor USD will, because you can actually acquire Thor USD, lock it up into the USD savers, and then earn yield on everything and burning of any derived asset. Goes into the swap fee goes into the USD vault. So anybody who wants to earn stable on top of their stable without Rune exposure, this is the place to be, right? Somewhat conceptually to the Anchor protocols, kind of earn USD on your USD kind of thing. We do not do like a fixed rate 20% blah 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 thing that Anchor's been doing for a while. That's their game. We have a different strategy. The yield will just be whatever the market demands the yield is going to be, whatever that's going to be. But until we actually add IBC or we add Thor savings, the other assets, Thor BTC, Thor F, will probably not be utilized very much because we need to create demand center for them first, which is perfectly fine. That'll happen, a few months later for sure.
So the derived asset for Thor USD is going to be awesome with the savings vault there, but then the other derived assets, this isn't coming right away, but with THORFi, when the blue chip savings vaults are rolled out, you lock those derived assets into a blue chip savings vault, and you're effectively just earning Bitcoin on your Bitcoin, ETH on your ETH, and etc. Right. So that's what's right. Crazy.
This is one of the biggest blockers that THORChain has for like adoption. In many respects, is that like people want to LP because they want to earn Bitcoin on their Bitcoin, but they don't want to take half Rune exposure because they're just not Rune fans themselves at this point, right? Largely because the market cap's much smaller than Bitcoin, so obviously the demand is very different. So, like if you think about, if you like create like a Venn diagram in your mind, and you have one circle that is the Rune circle, which is like people who want to earn on their Rune, right? Which is like, let's just call that $2 billion market cap. So it's the circle's at the size of like like an orange or something like this. And then you think about the Bitcoin people, which is, over $1 trillion. So that's obviously, like a lot different. And so the amount of people who want to earn Bitcoin on the Bitcoin is like gargantuanly, like this incredibly mind-numbingly large, right? And the people who want to earn Rune and Bitcoin is a kind of the union between these two circles, which is a small little sliver, this little tiny thing, which is, right now is about $100 million, according to the Bitcoin pool is today, right? So it's a very small little sliver of what can be unleashed with interest accounts on Bitcoin without Rune exposure. So like for me, like when I think about this mathematically or just objective logic, I think because the number of people or the number of capital that want to earn BTC on their BTC without Rune exposure is like 500x or 1000x, whatever the number actually is, greater than the people who want to earn Rune on their Rune. Like, what does that mean? Well, that basically means that people are going to be burning swapping in Bitcoin to burn Rune to acquire Thor BTC to get a yield on that BTC. And the capital that we're talking about, in use of my view, will probably be an order of magnitude larger than the actual pool is, right? So I think there's going to be a strong tendency that the Bitcoin, the amount of capital in Thor savings for Bitcoin is going to be 5-10x, something like this, like huge, much larger, just because The people who want to earn BTC is a much larger group of people than the people who want to earn BTC and Room, which is a much smaller group of people, right? So I think that we're going to see a massive quantity of Room being burned in the BTC by the BTC pool, or the F pool, or the Luna pool, or whatever. Doesn't matter. We'll see huge quantities of Room burned. At least in my opinion, that's true. Just logically speaking. And when that happens, we're going to see a huge adoption of this network, because now people are actually participating in it, whether or not they're aware they're participating in it. Like in the sense that a Bitcoin maxi will never want to touch or hold Room token, right? And in this context, they don't, right? They hold Bitcoin, they put Bitcoin in the system, and they get Bitcoin out later. And they, at no point would they actually really expose the Rune asset. And by doing so, they just burnt a fuck ton of Rune as part of the process, whether they're aware of it or not aware of that, right? And so you basically figure out a way to mobilize a maxi on Bitcoin to participate in the THORChain network and give great value to this network in the Room token, just by supplying them an opportunity to earn BTC on the BTC without exposure to any other assets. That's pretty. That doesn't blow your mind. I don't know what the hell would.
Yeah, I mean, to give some sense of scale of the market for single-sided yield on Bitcoin, Celsius looks like they hold over 150,000 Bitcoins. And BlockFi, I believe, is just over 100,000 Bitcoins. And even just a percentage of that amount of Bitcoin, which is searching for yield. And again, these services only give 0.2% or something insanely low on anything over a very small amount of Bitcoin. It's maybe 5% up to the first 0.1 Bitcoin or something. It just terrible rates. And people are going to be searching for yield in a better spot. And you can get single-sided Bitcoin yield here. A small percentage of what's in Celsius and BlockFi right now is the entire Rune market cap. That's a crazy number to think about.
Yeah, because you're getting a higher yield in a decentralized over a centralized way, which is a much lower yield. In fact, it would not surprise me at all if at least some segment of that, hundreds of thousands of Bitcoin that you were just referring to for Celsius and BlockFi could find their way into the savings account itself. Themselves, well, we need to give we say got to stay competitive as a company, and we need to give our users higher yield. Where can we get BTC yield? Oh wait, there's this thing called THORChain, and I can get BTC yield on my BTC, and blah blah blah. And so even if we don't necessarily beat Celsius and convincing people to move from Celsius to THORChain, Celsius may make the choice for their users to put their Bitcoin into THORChain. Either way, in my view, the Bitcoin's coming to THORChain. It doesn't matter who you're talking about.
Just did the math. I think if 15 to 20% of what's in BlockFi and Celsius moves to the blue chip savings vaults on THORChain, that's the entire market cap of Rune that is burned in dollar value amount.
Yeah, you're burning. I mean, it's just a silly math number, but yes, you're burning more Rune than the entire market cap that Rune exists today. It's ludicrous, but it's true.
Hey, gents, I gotta hop off for lunch, but yeah, thank you for hosting me, and looking forward to seeing you guys here in a few weeks.
Do you want to just talk about the expo again real quick? Because I think there's a lot more people in now than before.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, if you need to head real quick. All right.
No, perfect. I'm happy to. And yeah, thanks for that nudge. So yeah, we mentioned this at the top of the call, but yeah, it looks like there's almost 100 people in here now. So awesome. Yeah. We're super excited about this. I live in Austin, Texas, and one of the biggest crypto conferences in the US is coming to Austin next month. It's called Consensus. It's hosted by CoinDesk. It's June 8th through 12th. And so when we saw that, our kind of gears started turning, and we wanted to think about how we could have a presence for THORChain and all of our THORChain ecosystem friends and partners during that week, and help Thorpill Consensus and Thorpill the Austin community. And so we just teased for the first time now the first ever kind of multi-chain, cross-chain THORChain expo / mini conference. And so you can see the pinned tweet here in the Twitter space. It's called Cross-Chain Expo 2022. It'll be Wednesday, June 8th in Austin, Texas. And yeah, we'll have representatives from THORChain, from Nine Realms, Broker, Thor Wallet. We're talking to pretty much all the ecosystem projects, DeFi Spot, THORStarter, Rango Exchange, etc. And it'll just be an afternoon of programming. What we'll do is essentially we'll have lunch from 12 to 1, and then we'll have some talks and panels around like multi-chain and all the things that are happening in THORChain and the surrounding ecosystem. That'll be from 1 to 5:30, and then we'll have a happy hour from 5:30 to 8 o'clock, and that'll start that's like midweek, and then consensus is starts the next day, Thursday, through the weekend. So we're super excited for that. It's if you want to check it out here on Twitter, it's THORChain Expo, at THORChain Expo. On the web, it's crosschain.so. You can get tickets there. It's free. Forgot to mention that it's completely free. So come by. We'll have free food, free drinks, and we'll get to connect with a lot of this community and the developers and the founders that are helping kind of push forward this multi-chain future. So yeah, hope to see you guys all there Wednesday, June 8th, crosschain.so, and we'll boogie. Chad and Cal are coming.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there chatting with people, and I'll do a talk on the stage at some point somewhere. And it'd be great to see you. Great to hang out with everybody for sure.
Awesome. We're looking forward to it. Cal, thank you again, sir.
Thanks, Sagan. Catch you later.
All right,
take care, man.
Take care, y'all.
I'm actually most excited to meet Chad Thoreau. I think he's going to be there, right?
I'm not sure. I'm trying to convince him.
Come on, you gotta get him there.
Yeah,
I've never met him in person. You and I have met in person once before or twice before, but I would love to meet Thoreau in person.
Yeah, me too. You should sponsor him to come out.
I'm gonna haggle him every Friday at noon to come out. If he doesn't, I'm just gonna weekly publicly shame him until he agrees to come.
Sweet. So, is there anything else that we need to talk about before we go into some questions here?
I'm good.
I think we covered everything. Yeah, mainnet's coming is like from a network perspective, mainnet's already ready. Like there's no changes need to be for the network itself. We wanted to kind of accelerate mainnet with a launch of something else, and so we're waiting for the other partner, if you want to call them that, to get all their ducks in a row. It should be the next 2 weeks or so, I think.
All right. I guess we can bring up some people for questions. If you have questions about derived assets, aggregators, or mainnet, or this Kraken launch. Actually, there are two things that are new this week that we didn't talk about yet. So first is some news yesterday from the Akash founder that they announced that they'd be basically getting the hardware that a Thor node would be able to run on Akash's decentralized network. So I'm not really I'm not too knowledgeable about Akash, but that must be very good for node operators, right? So they don't have to start finding their own bare metal setups.
Yeah, I'm interested to see this whole Akash concept. I don't know enough about it at this point in time, to be honest with you. I have a lot of questions about security, for example, who's running these nodes, and if they're running anonymously, then how can we be sure that the operator of the actual physical node, whoever that random person is, that's a part of the Akash network, doesn't have root access to the environment that the node operator is running within. That's really important. So before I can kind of publicly put myself behind the Akash, I'm interested to see it. I kind of want to see it happen, but I need to look deeper into the security implications of that. And I also THORChain also has to do a deep dive into Akash and understand the security implications of what it would mean to run on top of something like this. So I'm excited to see more information come out as it comes out, and we'll do more research as it becomes in our forefront.
Also, the other thing is the bug bounty program just underwent some recent revisions, so that increased the maximum bounty up to $1 million right now for the maximum criticality levels for a total loss of funds event, and also introduced some lower criticality levels for things like consensus failure and accounting errors and stuff. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Eridanus.
Yeah, I mean, I think we, as THORChain again grows in TVL, it's going to be important to attract the most talented white hats, and I think this is a step in the right direction. I think we'll keep on kind of considering how we can improve it moving forward. I think increasing to 1 million for loss of funds, and the two lower criticality levels are a high criticality level, which is the payout is up to $100,000. And that's for a consensus failure or otherwise a chain halt. So basically bringing THORChain down so it's not producing blocks, which is, I would say the second worst thing that can happen besides loss of funds. So we're going to reward people if they can find a code path that can do that up to $100,000. And then a medium criticality level, which is basically the accounting is not operating as it should. So maybe rewards are going to the wrong people, or going, in the wrong way, or bond providers aren't getting what they deserve, or node operators aren't getting what they deserve, or LPs are not redeeming as many assets or RUN as they should. So things like that. And that max payout is up to $10,000. So yeah, when we're going to keep on kind of listening to community feedback and keep looking at it moving forward.
Sweet. And the bug bounty program is administered by ImmuneFi. So if anyone's interested in checking that out, just look for THORChain on ImmuneFi. All right, we can go into some Q&A. If anyone has questions, just hit the button in the bottom left to request to speak, and we'll let some people up. Just for some rules for the rules of engagement here. No trolls or shills. We'll just kick you off the stage, and that's about it.
So one more add-on to what Eridanus was saying while people are clicking the request button. What's kind of fascinating by increasing, and people don't really realize, and I actually haven't brought it up even within the team yet. I even need to do that, but that when we actually increase the limit of the bug bounty to like $1 million, whatever, that technically means that we can also increase or decrease the sensitivity of delaying outbound transactions on the network. Because part of the point of delayed outbound transactions is that we flip the economics of making it more profitable to be a white hat than it is profitable to be a black hat, right? And so because you've kind of created more capital to be for a white hat, you can technically decrease the sensitivity of delayed outbound so that they don't get delayed as long, or it takes a larger amount of capital or trade volume to push the delay of those outbound transactions. So that's something we should talk about internally and kind of go through some math and kind of simulate some things. But it makes sense to me to change the sensitivity of the delayed outbound for this purpose.
That's a cool idea. Yeah, I'm looking to that a little bit more.
Sweet. Yeah, IPDI. What's up, man?
Yeah, I would maybe disagree with that point, Chad. I think maybe it delays. It obviously delays how fast they can withdraw funds, but I don't think it changes the economic incentives too much. But I'm definitely glad to see that the bug bounty has an increase. I think it's still a little lower than what the successful hacker suggested, and considering he was successful, I think maybe taking his word. Or taking his advice would be wise. So I think I would like to see an improvement there as well. Something else that I had a little concern about was, there's a lot of different protocols that face regulatory risk in the future. But THORChain's the only one that has anonymous node operators. And I was wondering if the protocol felt that you could increase trust with the community. That if node operators weren't anonymous, and in that sense, community members could ensure that not just the node operators are in fact distinct and diversified, but they also have diversified interests, so that they can ensure that they're moving in the right direction together, or ensuring that the actions are with the community's best in heart.
Well, so we've always pushed node operators to stay anonymous and not to dox themselves. And the main reason why that is because if you dox yourself and expose who you are, you create the opportunity for the potential for node operators to have backroom conversations and such, and you create opportunity for collusion. Economically speaking, we kind of disincentivize collusion of any kind because it's not profitable, but it doesn't mean we don't want to kind of flirt with the devil in some sense. And so we've always pushed against that to make sure that node operators are anonymous, and I think I'd continue to push for that. There's no value in actually having people dox themselves. People can choose to if they want to. If an individual node operator in the world wants to dox themselves as running a node, then they can make a choice for themselves. But I don't see the value gained, knowing who's operating this node versus that node versus the other node over there.
Yeah, I think I'd argue that currently, node operators could potentially still communicate, because you have there's groups like 9R that pool funds together and run nodes and have a lot of weight in the OPSEC. And that's not to disparage anything. I just think that might help develop the community. And
how does that allow them to collude though?
Because if they're running multiple nodes together, that nodes can essentially collude because they're operated by the same team.
Well, okay, but if a single person is running 2 or 3 nodes or whatever, then yes, those 2 or 3 nodes can collude. True, but that's not what we're talking about here. The idea of getting multiple node operators across multiple nodes to collude becomes completely impractical if everybody doesn't know who anybody is. The only mechanism node operators have to communicate is through that make relay command, which cryptographically proves who they are, but they don't have an ability to message privately. Every communication they have is in the public Discord channel, and everybody can read it, including non-node operators. And so if anybody goes in there and says, "Hey, my Telegram handle is this. Let's all have a secret conversation," that exposes that individual node as somebody who's trying to have backroom conversations, and might result in that node getting banned.
I don't. So I'm not sure how getting banned would be a deterrent. But I think that's just one suggestion that like I came up with as a community member to build trust with others that I think could help build trust. This just seems to be the only protocol that has anonymous node operators. That's just
so you don't understand why somebody getting banned from the network and not being able to make the yield they're trying to make to be a disincentive?
I thought you mentioned that node operators might get banned from the Discord. And I don't know that was banned from the network.
Node operators have the ability to ban other node operators with a 2/3 consensus out of the network itself. So say, Eridanus, he was running a node and he wanted to do some active collusion or behave in a way that was against the best interest of the network. 2/3 of the network can just say, "Don't like Eridanus over here," and we're going to go ahead and kick him out of the network.
Can he theoretically just move his rune to a different rune wallet and just start operating a node there as well? Like, I'm not sure how.
Yeah, you could, but that would all be public information on the chain anyway. It would be, it wouldn't take anybody in the community can make that connection that node A is the same node operator as node B.
Also, to speak for Nine Realms a bit, maybe Eridanus wants to add on to this a bit too after I finish. But like Nine Realms does run nodes on on behalf of clients to provide rune, and we vote using node mirror. Like we run our nodes according to the rules of the network, because we want the network to be successful, because we're highly invested in it. But also we defer any choices to the clients that that we serve, and obviously we're known. we're known in the community to them, so we are basically doxed, and people know that we're acting in the interest of the network and our clients, who all hold a large amount of rune.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the other thing it's theoretical. That's all. And the second thing I wanted to just ask about was I was wondering if there's a way for non-developers to exchange value with the protocol in a trustless and permissionless manner. That's my second question.
I'm not sure if I understand the question. How a non-developer can exchange
value with the protocol in a permissionless and trustless manner, similar to how white hats can exchange value with Immutify. Is there a way for non-developers to?
You don't have to be a developer to connect with Immutify anonymously and notify the network of some sort of bug or exploit or what have you.
I see. Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Oh,
but you still have to prove your point. Like you can't go to Immutify and say like, "Hey, there's some issue with the network," and then get a $1 million payout. You actually do have to state in detail what it is and how the attack would work, blah blah blah. And then the core team with Immutify would go through the process of vetting the claim and seeing how true it is and so forth and so on.
I see. Yeah. And then lastly, Chad, man, apologies for posting that screenshot. That was inappropriate. You're right.
No worries, man. No worries.
Thanks, man. Eridanus, sorry, you're cut off before. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm all good.
All right, sweet. Rune Wolf, hey man.
Hi guys, thanks for hosting. I'm just amazed of the number of people in here. We're like 80, 90 people listening right now. It feels like everyone should be in here. Why isn't there more people listening?
It's because Chad Thoreau's not here. Chad Thoreau brings in the crowd.
Yeah, he does.
Maybe that's why. And my question, I haven't spent much time understanding Thor names. You're talking about Thor names now. As an end user, what does it mean for me if I have a Thor name? How do I use it? On what platforms do I use it? If you could just talk briefly about that, thanks.
Yeah, so the history of Thor names, very briefly, The problem we ran into was that info transactions where you put the transaction like intent. Some chains like Bitcoin, for example, limit the amount of bytes within a memo to 80 bytes, for example. And so that became a very tight space to put all the pieces of information we want to do a swap from this location to that location with an affiliate fee and basis points, blah, blah, blah. All that data just became too much to fit in an 80 byte memo. And so we created THORnames as a mechanism to shorthand addresses. So instead of putting, OX, some long F address, you can just put, familiarcow.f, right? A very short version of it. And so that way you can fit all the appropriate information data into a memo without needing the full, 180 bytes that you might need to say the thing that you're trying to say. That was the push for it, to make the network kind of retain its ability to operate without the requirement of you interacting with THORChain directly and spending rune as for gas to be able to let us know all the information we need to know in order to do the thing you wanted to do, which might be doing a swap or whatever. And then to make it a little more enticing for the community, this feature, we kind of said that anybody can buy a THORname. It can be an alias. familiarcow.f can go to some 0x address, and familiarcow.bdc can go to some BC1 address. And people can basically create vanity names for themselves, similar to like ENS to some degree. I don't expect it to be used outside of the context of this ecosystem. It might be adopted by other systems as well. That's possible. We'll see if that happens. But primarily its purpose, at least in my viewpoint, was just to get past some restrictions of some, layer one projects out there that allow us to maintain the same user experience and the same requirements, no matter what chain you're coming from.
Yeah, I get that, the background. So that would mean, for example, on THORSwap, I would just enter my shorthand address instead of the long number digit combination.
Right. And then probably maybe within the THORSwap UI, if you wanted to just do a transfer, send some BDC from your BC1 address to Familiar Cow, so you could just like send familiarcow.BDC or whatever and just send some Bitcoin, and then THORSwap will just kind of do the conversion for you and just look up the address and then set up BDC and then, carry on with everything without needing to copy and paste long, alphanumeric strings.
Yeah. I mean, it has immense potential, such a feature. If it's widely adopted, that would be awesome. It'll be interesting
if it's widely adopted, it might be. I don't know if it will be, to be honest with you. It's not something that like we as in the core devs are thinking a lot about or spending a lot of time to get adopted in other ecosystems. I think that if it were to happen and to have this kind of wider adoption across the greater ecosystem, I think that might just naturally happen if THORChain becomes a thing that I want it to become, where it becomes like the number one settlement layer in the world, highest trade volume, barring no other system in the world, and just becomes the kind of center of the multi-chain universe. You're trying to send and transfer, coins from point A to point B, and it doesn't matter what coin you have or what coin you're trying to get to. It's all the same from THORChain's perspective, and so you can just transact in a way that's just kind of agnostic about where you're coming from, where you're trying to get to, and we can include, THORnames just to kind of abstract away the complexity of, strange alphanumeric strings that most people in the world, are used to, like email addresses, right? These kind of vanity addresses we create for ourselves. Most people are comfortable with that, and maybe that'll be adopted as part of that. So, but it's not something that I spend all that much time thinking about or pushing for, at least not at this point in time. But it may just naturally happen if THORChain becomes this, critical component of infrastructure of the entire crypto space, that people just might adopt it just because it's there and it works cross chain and it's does all the things that they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks a lot.
I also don't think you mentioned that things like Monero are kind of contingent upon THORnames because of just the restrictions and the memo size there. So it's kind of widespread.
Monero it uses CryptoNote as its core kind of thing. And a CryptoNote address is 99 bytes, if I remember correctly. And 99 bytes obviously larger than 80 bytes because, obviously. So we needed something. Otherwise, we would have told, Bitcoiners, if you want to swap from Bitcoin to Monero, in this particular case, you'll have to get a Thor address and you'll have to buy some rune, and you're going to make a separate transaction first, and then go back to your Bitcoin address and then make a second transaction. And we just really want to avoid all that additional complexity and weird cases and edge cases, and we're just desperately trying to fight against that. And that's what all this kind of this THORname.
It's actually kind of funny now that I'm thinking about it, because you will need to dox yourself in this THORname. Not necessarily dox yourself, but you need to have some kind of identifier with the name in order to get to Monero, which is the completely private chains. That might be that's kind of interesting to think about.
Well, it depends what the name is, right? If my Thor name is a random 7-character alphanumeric thing, it's not really quite doxing myself. But if like my vanity name is like Chad Barraford, then yeah, I'm doxing myself at that point, you know.
Hey, Citizen Rit.
Hey, Chad, I would enjoy you being in front of Congress. I mean, I think that you got some practice dealing with people down at the Bitcoin conference, so it'd be fun to see you in front of Congress.
I would have so much fun with that, and to the point where I'd probably be arrested, to be honest with you. But like, I would love to have that opportunity just to tell them how fucking dumb they are.
Seeing you smirk after like Elizabeth Warren asked a question or something along the lines of, going to go over there and slap you like you said at the conference, that would be funny. That'd be entertaining. So give us a heads up. We'll do a great Twitter space to watch that live if it happens.
Well, I hope it never happens, to be honest. Because if I'm being called in front of Congress, it's a bad news for me, but it's probably good news for the network. It probably means that THORChain has grown to a certain size and that it can no longer be ignored by anybody in the world. So it's probably good for the community if that actually were to happen and insinuate something positive there at least.
Yeah.
But I'll be happy to stand in front of Congress and say, you don't have a right to tax crypto and you don't have a right to regulate it either. I have no problem saying that to them.
You'll have to get Eric Voorhees to come along with you. I'm sure he'd gladly say it with you. So
I'm sure he would agree with me on this, but I'm not sure he would gladly want to get in front of Congress and risk legal. You have to be very careful what you say there, and you have to say like "yes, Senator" or something. And I don't know. I hope I never do, because I'm sure I'd get arrested after the fact if I did.
Yeah, or at least put on some shadowy list. Anyways,
yeah, I'll be on the no-fly list before you know it. Probably.
Yeah. I was curious along those lines with just all the coming regulation and stuff like that. The SEC's ramped up enforcement. Do you know what percentage of node operators have been like doxxed, or like how easy? Like, is there even really a technical way? Like, if someone wanted to do some investigative journalism or do some sleuthing to like figure out IP addresses, to figure out who the node operators are, really a thing?
Well, I'm not sure what the legal rights are, but like, so there are IP addresses, and node operators do operate. Vast majority do operate on like AWS or Azure or DigitalOcean or what have you. And I'm not sure what rights journalists have to be able to, query AWS for private records. I probably don't have an ability to do it unless there's been some sort of crime that's been committed or something like this. Like, I can't go to AWS and ask them who runs server A, B, or C. Like, they just won't tell it to me because that'd be a privacy issue that they would have a big problem. The only way that AWS would actually do it is if they felt legally obligated to. And so if the NSA, FBI, or something like this came to them and subpoenaed them for the information, then they could probably get the information at that point, to be honest with you. That's the only way to do it. But I'd rather make it difficult for people to dox them than give it to them freehand. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. Let's look at my profile picture. But I'm curious on that note as well. Like, does the SEC have the authority to like do a subpoena? I suppose they probably do, or like a warrant to like AWS.
They do. They can. I don't think they have the ability to actually get information from them, but they can do a cease and desist. But then again, I don't know. Like I said before, like technically speaking, THORChain isn't an exchange according to the current definition of the term exchange for the SEC. So can you make the claim that this is buying and trading securities if there's no order books? I think technically speaking, you can't, because you need order books to be called an exchange. You need an exchange to be called like buying and selling securities or what have you. Not that I'm a lawyer or I understand this at any great depth. I just know some ancillary information, but like, it'd be difficult. I think they need to restructure the definition of their terms before they can really come at us as a community, not just me, but just as a general crypto and DeFi community. And then that's going to be very difficult because they're going to come out with a new definition of the term asset or a new definition of the word exchange, which from the general community in the world, which they are legally obligated to read every single one of those things. And then they have to figure out, are they going too far? Are they stifling on freedom of speech? There's actually a famous case of that, by the way. There was a guy, I think in the the 80s, who was selling basically like insider information, and he got the ability to be a trader or to be a CFA and give like financial. He was debarred in a sense, right? And then a few years later, he started giving or selling these like flyers right? Or these like a news, not a newspaper, but like a newsletter. Yeah, it's like a newsletter that you could get of like stock tips and, well, his feelings on what's going to go up and his feelings what's going to go down. And then the SEC took him, actually, I think it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And they said, like, you've been debarred, you don't have the right, blah, blah, blah. You're not a licensed, blah, 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 whatever. And, you don't have to do so. You have to stop doing this thing. He says, no, I'm not really like giving information to a specific person. I'm exercising free speech. I'm just saying publicly, this is the stocks that I like, the stocks that I don't like. This is just, I'm exercising free speech. And it ended up being that the SEC lost that case. And they felt that they were stampeding on that man's right to express freedom of speech rather than giving financial advice to an individual, blah, 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 which requires all these, study, blah, blah, blah. So like, it's going to be difficult because they can quickly get to a place where they can stifle on free speech, right? And not allow people to be able to, operate the way they want to operate. So it's not easy for them. I don't envy Gensler's in a really tough position because he's operating on legislation from 100 years ago to figure out how to handle, DeFi and blockchain stuff. And then he has like the inability to actually sue in many cases because he has to define what a security is, which he's just really avoidant to do so. The only thing that he's actually taking action on, historically speaking, like actual action, not just like talking about creating teams or creating investment, blah, 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 but actual action is like when you're obviously taking and selling something that is already known to be security, like Apple stock and Tesla stock. Like those things are little legitimate securities already defined to be so. And so those are like low, easy hanging fruit for him to go after. That's an easy win where you can make, $10 million or whatever the price will be at the end of it all, and be able to make a little revenue for his team to do what they got to do as the SEC. But like coming after something like even Ripple is like a dangerous kind of and treacherous thing, and they're really struggling to put together a decent case against them. At least in my opinion, that's true. Ripple was smart to say, you need to, what is Ethereum and why is it not a security? Because I think I said before that it's not security. So like, okay, what makes it not a security? And Ripple, it is a security. And that requires them to make a definition, which they're really avoiding to do because they don't know how to define it, because they don't have the ability to define it. They have to wait for Congress to define that stuff. And so it's really tricky for them. And so it's not something I'm terribly concerned about in the near future, but it's something that we all should be concerned about, 5 years from now or maybe even longer.
Yeah. Interesting. Thanks for sharing all that. I wasn't aware of the technicality with the AMMs and, the order book being part of the definition of exchange. That was definitely an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, they recently tried to find a new definition of the word exchange. Recently, this is like a few weeks ago, I think. And there was just this very wide, scoping thing that it was trying to say that even if you're not operating the exchange and you are writing code that contributes to that is something, right? That should be legally, nefarious or whatever. But that's never happened in American history or any country that I'm aware of, at least any first world country that practices democracy, that the ability to actually bring somebody to court over written code but not executed code, right? Because if today in America, if I were to write a book and it's called, How to Rob a Bank, right? And I publish that book and I put it in a library, blah, 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 or sell it on Amazon, there's nothing actually legally wrong with that. That's just exercising free speech, right? Obviously it's illegal to rob a bank, but me just kind of writing a document of how to do so, it's not illegal, right? And so there's never been a case that I'm aware of that of any government agency to actually take to court or to charge the crime of any code that's ever been written. Because that's not exercising it's not the act of thinking about something that makes it illegal. It's the act of doing it, right? Which they're not doing it, they're writing it. And that's very different. That's a freedom of speech thing. So it's a very difficult kind of new world we're in. And I honestly don't know what's going to happen because as soon as you get to a place where you start to regulate the writing of code itself, that becomes, very dangerous in terms of a free speech perspective, or very waiting for, a Supreme Court case that kind of define what is free speech and the limitations of free speech. But historically speaking, the Supreme Court has always sided on the free speech side. Even the case of capital was considered to be free speech, which was the time of the Supreme Court about, I think it was 8 years ago or 9 years ago, where money was considered to be free speech, blah, blah, blah. You can't curb money, all this kind of stuff. So it'd be really hard. I wouldn't want to do it if I were them, because it'd be very treacherous in so many ways, and it'd be controversial and all these things. But the new definition of exchange that was kind of floated and asked for feedback was this really kind of weird definition that not included AMMs, included exchanges. It's like, it was just this very wide scoping thing that like would put a lot of people in danger, both inside the crypto space and outside the crypto space, the entire financial markets in all its entirety. So like, I don't think it's going to go through. I doubt that's going to actually pass. There's just too many people that are against it, including outside of the crypto space. But they're trying, I guess, and not particularly well.
Yeah. Well, I guess right here, right now, Chad, the community is listening, looking for you to commit to moving to the Bahamas and things get hairy.
Hopefully I'm gone before that needs to happen. That's definitely.
Last two things real quick was just one, I think you mentioned a few weeks ago, you just had a baby. So congratulations on that. My wife's expecting her in the next like week or so. So we're excited for the second. Kids are awesome. And then the other one was just a quick comment on Akash. I think I mentioned this to Greg, tweeted at him a little while ago about it. But basically my concern was kind of what you had, like, hey, if just like random people are running the servers, then like they can access the data, right? And he like said, yeah, they can access the data, but what's their incentive to do it? I mean, it seems like there could be a lot of incentives at some point. And yeah, I don't know if like there's some world in which they could kind of do Akash, but with like the trusted execution environments that they have on secret or something. But yeah, I still haven't fully wrapped my head around the possibilities there or even like the risks. So it doesn't quite make sense to me how it works.
Yeah, if the individual running the node within the Akash, like the actual person running the physical hardware within Akash has access to the environment, then that is obviously a huge problem because they would be able to rug pull the node operator and lose a lot of money. So that would be a no-go for obvious reasons. The difference between like Akash and something like AWS is that when an operator runs the AWS, there's a trusted relationship there. We know who's running the node, but they're not supposed to, have access to the actual, data such as like this. And so if there is an event that occurs, there's somebody to hold liable, right? A node operator can actually go ahead and sue AWS for blah, 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 doing all these things. But if somebody does that within like the Akash network, then like, I don't have an ability as a node operator, hypothetically, to be able to sue Akash or even know who the node operator was that stole all of my funds, right? So we have to make sure we do a deep dive and make sure that it meets our very, very tight specifications on what we consider to be secure and not be, able to rug pull node operators. That would obviously be terrible. So we have to do a deeper dive into it at one time.
Cool. Yeah, I'd be curious too to see if there's more possibilities of how like Secret could support THORChain, especially with their interchain accounts coming up soon. But anyways, I'll put down here because I've mentioned a bunch of stuff.
But even Secret, like it uses SGX, like in enclave hardware to be able to do its security, which historically speaking, like has had some, issues from an encryption perspective. And even if you did have that, like, what's to stop me as an operator to be able to change the firmware or upgrade? I have root access to the physical box. I mean, I can do it. There's a lot I can do. So even that, I'm just a little bit hesitant to do. And even within that, like the only provider that I'm aware of that actually supports that kind of secure enclave hardware is Azure right now. AWS doesn't support it. DigitalOcean doesn't support it. That would push a lot of our nodes onto AWS, maybe too many possibly. Sorry, onto Azure.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Very interesting. Hardware sounds like it continues to be one of the big bugaboos for some of the long-term visions here in DeFi.
For sure. It's going to be an ongoing problem we're all going to need to think about and improve over time frame. But that's just how technology works.
Let's go to Birchie Large.
Hey, guys. Big fan of the project. Just a quick question. The tone is kind of like, hey, we're kind of independent of regulators and U.S. regulators. My question is, let's just say they do deem you a security. We want to go down that route. How do you feel? I mean, to me, a lot of the value case is that you are a central liquidity for all of DeFi, all of TradFi, right? That scenario makes it really hard for others to come and actually interact with the protocol. So just the question is it really the most prudent goal to kind of be this, hey, we can't be touched by regulators? Is there a better option where let's comply and KYC and do the things they want? Just would love your thoughts on that.
It's not so much that, like, quote unquote, we can't be touched. I'm not saying, I don't think I've ever said that. If regulators want to come down on individuals, nothing's going to stop them from doing so. I've expressed my own personal opinion that they don't have. I don't think, from my non-professional legal perspective, see how they have the right to tax or regulate crypto, because it's completely outside of the domain of the United States. This is my personal opinion, or my giving financial advice or even legal advice for that matter. But if they want to come forward and say we want to add KYC, then guess what's going to happen? Well, they're going to have to convince somebody to build that PR, which wouldn't be that hard, to be honest with you. To add KYC to THORChain, we're going to put it up to the community to adopt it or not adopt it. I think the community will probably not adopt it. Most likely, I think there's going to be a fork at some point of THORChain of a KYC version. Someone's going to fork the code, build a new implementation of it, and make it KYC. And if people want to use that, they can use that instead. But this one, I doubt this one will ever become KYC. I can't see the community getting, agreeing to such a thing.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
I think before it's forked and the liquidity is shared between other protocols rather than THORChain, I think it's probably more likely that front end things would implement KYC to access THORChain. But that's also a possibility as well. Chad, you mentioned
yeah, but one thing to that though, like I remember I was talking to somebody over at Galaxy Digital a while back. I was invited to come out to this conference thing, and I was talking to one of those guys at kind of this Galaxy Digital party thing, whatever the hell it was, and he was saying that that what you just described wouldn't be enough for them, because they have to make sure that all the liquidity they're interfacing with, meaning people who's providing into the pools, would all have to be KYC'd and validated by governments and the people who are on the no-fly list or the blacklist that the government maintains can't be interacting with it at all. Blah blah blah. So I mean, I even suggested to them at that point, like they should just go ahead and fork THORChain and build a KYC version of it for themselves, so they can provide liquidity to the world. I don't think that's just something very seriously, but it might happen at some point. Actually, I actually would gamble that it will happen at some point.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point how non KYC or assets that have been associated with blacklisted accounts can then taint other assets that are or taint other accounts that have nothing to do with that. Chad, you mentioned earlier, I think like 15 minutes ago, that you didn't really care if node operators dock themselves. It's up to the node operators. But from my recollection, the THORChain docs specifically say that node operators must remain anonymous, that they cannot dox themselves. And I think that might that problem's like that obviously prevents them from doing so, and then that's further compounded when node operators can then turn on a specific node operator as well.
Well, no, what I said was that culturally we strongly tell people to not dox themselves, and I've done this privately and I've done this publicly in communication with people. Like, I always encourage people to not dox themselves and stay anonymous. But in the end, people are going to do what people are going to do, and there are individuals on Twitter, for example, who publicly stated that they're running a Thor node, blah blah blah, like, or whatever, right? Or people on Discord who kind of insinuate that they are running a node or know somebody who's running a node or something like this. People are going to do what they're going to do. But I always push hard against the idea of people exposing themselves as node operators.
But I don't believe they use their real name, right? Because I mean, for example, look, when you mentioned that, like, if AWS since they've got access to the execution environments or node operators, they can theoretically rug pull, and then node operators would have, because that's a trusted entity, a known entity. There's then legal recourse in that case, but then in that case, like, node operators would have recourse with the infrastructure providers, but LPers wouldn't have recourse with node providers or node operators.
Well, LPers don't need it. Like, the case you're talking about, node operators can get rug pulled by AWS, whatever. LPs cannot. Like, you can't rug pull the network. You can rug pull a specific node, and that node operator will pay dearly for it. But LPs aren't at risk of losing funds, even if AWS rug pulls a bunch of the node operators. They're still net positive. LPs are.
So if like, let's say theoretically, like, AWS had access to the execution environments of node operators, and they had access to more than 2/3 of it theoretically.
Well, they don't. They have less than half right now, so they wouldn't be able to get 2/3.
When you were talking about AWS, having access to these environments and rug pulling, that was also a theoretical statement, right?
Well, no, that's possible. AWS, could do that in some way, shape, or form to the node operators on AWS and rug pull those node operators, and those node operators would lose a bunch of room because of it. But they could not, steal the entire network. It's not possible because only I think less than half of the nodes are running on AWS today.
I see. Okay. Well, I hopefully that continues to trend down.
Yeah, there was a PR that was opened in a discussion recently of a code change that would basically that would limit the number of nodes, active nodes in the network based upon what cloud provider they're a part of, right? And so if there's already, there's the maximum of, let's just say a maximum of 40 nodes can be AWS, for example, and there's already 40 AWS nodes, then it's not going to churn in any more AWS nodes. It's going to churn in Azure nodes or DigitalOcean nodes or, whatever, Google Compute or whatever. Like the network itself can detect who's running on what infrastructure and then dynamically allow and not allow certain people just because of the infrastructure they're living on, just to ensure that like no one node operator, no one a cloud provider has the ability to actually get more than a third of the nodes on their network.
Okay. Great. Again, I just want to mention that if it's your opinion that it's up to the node operators to determine whether they want to stay anonymous or not, the docs might want to be revised in that sense. I think this doc specifically say that they must remain anonymous. That's all.
Yeah, and I would strongly encourage that stay anonymous. But in the end, it's still your choice. Like, if you dox yourself, what's going to happen? The worst case scenario is that the other nodes ban your node, which hasn't happened yet. So I don't think doxing seem to be a high enough crime to cause other nodes to ban you, right? Ban your node from the network. So there doesn't seem to be any kind of recourse for any particular node operator that chooses to dox themselves. But I would still
it's a big personal security risk. Like I would be worried as a node operator to dox myself. Not right. I'm obviously not a node operator, but if I were, I wouldn't say that I was, because then people would target me for, if you get into my node, you could basically just rug pull me and make me lose all my funds. So that's the incentive to remain anonymous. You're protective of your own money. If you put a target on your back, then people will go digging and try and get access to your fund or your node or something. If they know you're a node operator, that just paints a giant target on your back that you don't want to have.
Right. Correct.
That's right.
There's a question from Twitter, Chad. Thanks. There's a question from Twitter just about THORFi. So I guess this could be the last thing before we wrap up here. Has there been any major feedback or changes needed for the THORFi design? And how has it been holding up in economics? Besides the past week.
Good question. Yeah, good question. You're kind of cutting out at the end of it there. I got the question.
Sorry, yeah, we're getting rugged on Twitter a little bit with the voices on stage. It should be fine for everyone off stage.
Yeah, sometimes you don't hear each other all that well on stage, apparently. Hopefully Twitter will fix that issue at some point. But it was a good question to ask. The biggest change that was made to the original kind of doc that was released was how the network reacts to price manipulation. And so one of the things we have to be concerned about is when dealing with derived assets is somebody manipulating coin prices on the layer one asset and then buying or selling the derived asset for a profit, right? And so originally there was just going to be by detecting the amount of trade volume on a particular anchor pool of a particular derived asset, that it would just pause trading with enough kind of price manipulation. And I think we realized that it's actually probably stronger and better for the peg if we, instead of doing that, we just decrease the amount of the depth of the derived pool all the way down, potentially in extreme cases, all the way down to 1% of its intended depth. So it becomes very, very shallow, which makes it really hard to become profitable if you want to price manipulate, because the trade fee is exorbitantly high. So you wouldn't be profitable in that case. But the important there is that an arbitrage bot still has an infinite amount of liquidity that they can use, because a CLP has infinite liquidity at the point where it's at. And you can actually still arbitrage the peg and still maintain that for every $1 room you put in the network, you get $1 authority USD, and vice versa. Even in the cases where somebody is trying to price and attack the network in that sense, or economically attack in that sense. So it will still maintain the peg, because as soon as you pause trading for that derived asset, the peg is now broken, because arbitrage bots cannot maintain that peg to be what it's supposed to be. So as a last ditch effort, the network tries to maintain that pool be traded, unless the layer one or anchor pools are not traded. Then that will cause that one to stop trading. But that makes sense. Same thing happens. Like if we pause trading on the Bitcoin network right now, for example, hypothetically, you'll start to see that the Bitcoin pool price kind of starts deviating away from the market price, right? You kind of break the price of the pool versus the price of the market. But as soon as you re-enable trading again, the price gets changed, the pool price gets corrected to the market price. So that was really called the biggest change that was made to the original kind of implementation that I can think of off the top of my head. There's been some economic simulations that have been worked on by myself and Orion as well. I think the economic results have shown more bullish than I would have guessed, to be honest with you. I was expecting it to be good. I was expecting it to be the numbers that come out as well as they have. The more that I talk about the flaws of the network with or the potential risks of this network with people like Delphi, for example, the more I realize how resilient this network is to all sorts of different types of potential disaster scenarios. It's not impervious. It's not, nothing in the world is impervious, but the ability of this network to be able to create buy pressure on the Rune asset when there's some sort of dumping flood event where everybody's selling Rune and dumping the derived assets. So some bank run death spiral, blah, 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 what you're thinking of, that in that scenario where you create that kind of spiral and this huge down pressure on the Rune price, there's an equal and opposite up pressure on the Rune price, because the yield of the LPs, of the savers, of all these things kind of inversely go up as the price gets pushed down. It's kind of this mathematical, kind of fascinating kind of result. And so that's what you want in a death spiral scenario, so that you have this reciprocating thing of the price goes down, which causes something else, which causes the price to go down, which causes the same thing again, which causes the price to go down. That's what a death spiral is. Instead of reciprocating like a flywheel, it just spins out of control and the whole thing goes to zero. We saw that with USDMD, we saw that with Iron Protocol, we saw that blah, 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 a bunch of different times with algos disables, because there were missing core components. You really need that when there's a death spiral going on or some sort of massive push down in price, that you need something to push up against it. And those protocols didn't have anything pushing up against it. In UST's design, they have two things. One is that the Luna token itself has quote unquote intrinsic value for paying for gas and other purposes. And therefore there's kind of a lower level of how far down it can go. But on top of that, they've throw Bitcoin and Avalanche as kind of reserves to kind of sell Bitcoin at 98 cents to the dollar. But the problem with that is that they're using order books at all. And order books is not really all that effective because there's only a limited amount of liquidity. That's why they pause trading or pause the minting or burning of UST at a certain volume per day, because the order book can only take so much kind of economic pressure in a given 24-hour period. Whereas a continuous liquidity pool can take infinite. It's actually precisely infinite. And so it doesn't really matter how deep or shallow that kind of CLP is. It can handle an infinite supply of trade volume through that system. And it's always a counterparty to every trade. So it's a much, much, much better and much more resistant design. I think the more we do these economic simulations, the more we realize how powerful CLP is, especially the slip-based model of fees is effective against, the worst case scenario we can all kind of dream of. It's quite fascinating, actually. Sorry, that was long-winded, but it was a kind of interesting topic.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks for the comprehensive answer, Chad. I'm sure everyone just wants to make sure that this system is going to be economically safe for THORChain, because obviously we all want to see THORChain succeed and deliver on its goals. So it's great that we're getting this modeling actually done, and people are thinking about this. You and Nine Realms and the rest of the core team are really just focused on making sure this is all fully baked out before anything goes to even StageNet. So I'm really looking forward to when we can finally start playing with these things. But right now, always the model is to deal with for now. So that's great that work's being done, and we can make sure that we have a reasonable degree of confidence in these systems before they're finally deployed to StageNet and eventually mainnet.
Yeah, there's a lot more to it than what I was just talking about. I could probably spend an entire hour kind of going to the depths of. Because I've been going to the depths with Delphi and kind of thinking it through about what if this scenario happened? What if this doomsday scenario happened, and how would the network respond in this case? And what changes can we make to the design to make it more resistant to such things? And we've thought about these things a lot and discussed them in great detail. And I think the more I talk about it with Delphi and others, the more bullish I feel about the design that we have, to be honest. I think the only change that's not actually in the document that I would like to make that's been updated is the idea that savers can compound their interest, meaning that every 30 days or whatever, you can take the yield that you've earned, put it back into your principal, and then make yield on your principal, like, increasing, compounding your interest. And like by doing that, you opt to lock up your liquidity for 30 days, right? And so every 30 days you can kind of like auto renew and let's get compounding interest. And it doesn't put any additional pressure on the network to produce more and more yield. You're competing with everybody else in that savers pool, to earn that yield. So you're making more against the people who are not compounding their interest. And so the effective result of that is that, like, at any given time, 90-something% of the liquidity in Thor savings is going to be locked up, per request of the individual putting their capital in there. And then, so if there is some sort of massive FUD event, whatever, like the vast majority of the derived assets aren't even liquid. You can't even dump them into Ruin even if you wanted to, because you've chosen to get compounding interest in the savings account, and then your capital is locked for 30 days, and then relocked every 30 days, and so forth and so on. So as a defensive mechanism against some sort of FUD event that might cause hyperinflation or hyper panic or something like this.
Great. Any closing thoughts for wrap up?
What do you got to do, Eridanus?
Any next soon?
Not much. All good things. I'm excited. Yeah, I mean, I've spent a lot of time reviewing that PR, the derived assets PR, this week, and we spent a long time talking about it. And I'm excited to get this out the door.
All right. Well, thanks for coming out, everybody. We do this every Friday at noon, and then you can catch the recording right here, just on the same link. We also upload it to Runebase shortly afterwards, so everyone can catch the recordings. These are probably the best spot to learn about THORChain and learn about what's coming up in the future. So, and a great place to ask questions. So make sure you guys share it with other Thor chads and people who are maybe Thor curious. So, thanks, everybody.
Later.
Awesome. Thank you.